Hi there, we're going to be taking a quick look at common denominators. Now, let's say that you had 70 cents and your friend had 8 pesos. I'm going to ask you who has more money. Now, some of you might be able to give the correct answer if you are familiar with how much pesos are worth. But for most of us, it would be a little bit difficult. It might be much easier if I said who has more money. You who has 70 cents, or your friend who has 82 cents. Well, we know that your friend has more money because 82 cents is more than 70 cents. And that's the idea behind getting common denominators. When you have a common ground, it's much easier to compare things. So remember, when dealing with fractions, the number on top of the fraction we consider the numerator. The number on the bottom of the fraction we consider the denominator. So here we're focusing on the bottom of the fraction as the denominator. Let's say we have two fractions over here. We have 1/8 and we have 3/4, and we want to write these fractions with common denominators. So first you want to identify what is your denominator. So in this first one, we've got a denominator of 8. So I'm just going to write 8 here on the side. And on the second one, we've got a denominator of 4. So I'm going to go ahead and write 4 here. These are our two denominators. And eventually you might be able to do this really quickly and you don't have to write everything out. But if you're not sure what the common denominator is, it's always easiest if you start writing multiples of the number. So if I start writing multiples of 8, I have 8. If I multiply that by 2, then I get 16. Then I get 24, so on and so forth. If I do that with 4, I get 4. I get 8. I get 12. I get 16, so on and so forth. We're just going by 4s. Now, let's look at what our common denominator options are. Well, we've got these 8s here. Since they both have 8 in common, we can write the common denominator is 8. We've also got these 16s in common, so we can choose a common denominator of 16 if we would like. Now, most often it's easiest, it's most simple if we stick with the smallest common denominator. In this case here, that would be 8. So now that we know our common denominator is 8, I'm just going to write it here so you remember our common denominator is 8. Let's rewrite equivalent fractions to our 1/8 and our 3/4, making sure they have a denominator of 8. So starting with 1/8, well, what's the denominator here? It's 8. Our common denominator is 8, so we're good. 1/8 we can leave all by itself. Now let's take a look at this 3/4. Our denominator here is 4. Our common denominator is 8. So here we do not have the common denominator. So we want to ask ourselves, what times 4 will give us 8? Well, I know that 4 times 2 is 8, so I want to multiply this by 2. And remember, for equivalent fractions, you have to do the top and the bottom. So I'm going to multiply this by 2 over 2. And 3 times 2 is going to give me 6. And 4 times 2 on the bottom is going to give me 8. Now, looking here, I have a denominator of 8. I have an equivalent fraction of 6/8. That's my common denominator. So I know that this now has a common denominator with this over here. 1/8 and 6/8 written with our common denominator of 8. Okay, really quickly, let's talk about ordering fractions. This could be like put the fractions in order from least to greatest, or from greatest to smallest, or whichever order they want. Now, the easiest way to do this is to get common denominators. Remember, it's like comparing cents and pesos. It's easier if you always compare the same thing. So first, let's get common denominators. Here we have the fractions 1/2, 2, and 3/4. First, let's identify our denominators. Here we have a denominator of 2. Here we have a denominator. Now this is a whole number, so remember, we can rewrite our whole numbers that don't have a denominator as over 1. So here our denominator is 1. And then for our last one, our denominator is 4. Now if I followed my last steps in finding common denominators, I have 2, 4, 6, so forth. I have 1, 2, 3, so forth. I have 4, 8, 12, and so forth. Now I notice my least common here is going to be, let me rewrite here. Let me go ahead and put a 4 on here because I didn't find a common one yet, but now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and I see my least common is 4. All of these have 4 in common. So if I went ahead, I'm going to skip ahead and do this. You can do the work on your own if you're not seeing how I'm getting these answers, but if I rewrote 1/2 with a denominator of 4, I'm going to get 2/4. If I rewrote 2/1 with a denominator of 4, I'm going to get 8/4. And if I rewrote 3/4 with the denominator of 4, well, it already has a denominator of 4. That's going to stay the same. That gives me 3/4. Now, looking over here, I can order these much easier because it's comparing fourths. All of these have fourths. So let's put these in smallest to biggest. Well, 2/4 is obviously smaller than 8/4 or 3/4. So first I have 2/4. Next, my next smallest is 3/4. And my biggest, my largest is 8/4. So we've successfully put these in order. Remember, whenever ordering fractions, you may be able to tell in your head without doing any of the work what goes first and what goes last, etc., etc. But if you're stuck, if you don't know, always get common denominators. Then it's much easier to compare.